To all those who are watching me across the state, what does it truly mean to build a business that lasts beyond, your own involvement? How do you transition from being the essential driver to building a self-sustaining institution? Today, I'm diving into the mindset and strategies that requires you to truly build beyond yourself. I welcome you again to another interesting edition of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, your executive producer. My name remains Atanda-Owo. I think it's important for us to hear what on this day initial segment asks for us. When I return, I give my 2 cents on it. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. My takeaway from on this day initial segment today just shows that leaders have majorly been the sources or the source of majority of our issues or challenges with ethnicity, and of course religious divides that I believe that lacks respect for others when it comes to religion, and how ethnicity is a blatant call to unnecessary divides in our country. And why would a nation filled with over 250 tribes, diverse languages, multiple religions be, I don't know why that should be an issue for us to now become an organization that is bringing all sorts of divide with religion. But God, I just pray that we move past all these issues, all these divides, and protect just whatever religion that we believe in. On this note, I think it's important for us to quickly get a word from my sponsors, those who have put me on this platform. When I return, I dive straight to the topic at hand. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. As the Nigerian business landscape continues to evolve, a critical question emerges for our founders and entrepreneurs. How do you scale a vision into a lasting legacy? This is the very heart of the upcoming Building Beyond You conference, which brings together a powerhouse lineup of icons like Fela, Durotoye, the iconic beauty entrepreneur and pioneer, who is the convener of this conference, and of course others like including Fela, Durotoye, Woshika, the female banking giant, and others to address the pivotal challenges, like I like to say, without me using the word problem, using this event as backdrop of my show today. As we go on air with my guests, I'm dissecting what it takes to move from success to significance, to create enterprises that thrives on systems, not just the founder's sweat. I will be unpacking the secrets behind achieving staggering growth, the art of attracting transformative capital, and how to bridge the gap between traditional business and will I say the digital future. Yeah, because technology have come to stay. But to help me, or to help us have a real talk around this discussion, I'm being joined in the studio by an exceptional leader who has masterfully done exactly all that I've shared thus far. But before I unveil him or delve into real talk with him, I think it's important for me to play his profile video, and when I return, we'll be speaking with him directly. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. Hi, many thanks for staying with me. Let me use this opportunity to quickly usher in my guest on the show today. That's Atanda-Owo, the Executive Director, SKLD Integrated Services, and it's a pleasure to have you on Real Talk with Kike today. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you for having me.
All right, many thanks for creating time to do this. And let's just dive straight to the issue at hand, because I feel the Building Beyond You conference, that is being hosted, or that is conveyed rather. That's what I'm trying to remember now, by Tara Fela Durotoye, tackles a critical Nigerian business problem, and the founder, as far as I'm concerned, it just feels that it just further deepens the trap that we all are going through as entrepreneurs. Why is this theme of building self-sustaining institutions so urgent that you think that Tara has decided that no, we need to bring this to fore right now for the growth of the Nigerian economy? What's your take on this? Why do you think gave her the urge to say it's time for us to throw a lot of light on this?
So, thank you so much for having me here. So we're a very populous nation, and job creation is such an important conversation in the scheme of things, right? So the more businesses that survive beyond their first few years, the more productivity we have generally as a nation, and the more jobs are created. And we know that data shows that there's quite a lot of businesses that don't survive the first few years of their existence. In fact, data from a platform like Perplexity says that roughly 60% of Nigerian businesses don't go past the first 2 years, while the global data is just around 10%, right? So for me, I think it's important for us to build a narrative around strong organizations that go beyond the founder, goes beyond just maintaining the lifestyle of the owner of the business. So I think it's such an important conversation. Okay, fantastic. I like the fact that you touched on the global data, because I feel data from the SMEDAN, and the MBS survey, shows over 95% of Nigerian businesses, are under MSEMS, with a staggering majority rate, so to speak. And when you mentioned data, I just felt that this conference theme again, that which I've actually referenced earlier, Building Beyond You, directly addresses our scale up crisis. Sure. Because why does the Nigerian entrepreneur consistently struggle to transition from a successful owner operator or being operated venture to a scale that I feel that institutionally they should be able to say, okay, with professional management I should be able to transition to another level and just give the mantra to somebody else to carry with your vision. What is that core mindset that you think that we need to shift from for this kind of design to occur, to trigger that beyond, what's it called now? Beyond the founder.
The founder, yeah, thank you.
Also, I think everything starts with intentionality, if you ask me. Because when people set out to start a business, there are typically things on their mind, I watched a few of your old interviews, and some of the things you talked about is the fact that a lot of young people today think, first of all, about the glamour and the results than the process. I don't want to make this about young people, but broadly speaking, when you look at business, people start businesses for different reasons. Sure. There's a concept of the lifestyle business, which is really designed around funding the lifestyle of the founder. But there's also the concept of growth businesses that is, originally imagined to transcend just the lifestyle of the founder. A business that wants to get people employed, that wants to make impact in different markets, different cities. So I think fundamentally the intentionality of the founders is where it all starts from. It's a mix of vision and strategy. What did you see that led you to starting that business? A lot of the businesses you see in Nigeria today, I dare say, are sometimes influenced by this person started, he's doing so well, and then we jump right into it. And maybe that's human nature, maybe that's not a Nigerian thing, but when businesses majorly are driven by that mindset, then there's no foundation for why you went in there in the first place. So it's very likely that when the traditional challenges that face businesses are more so the kind of challenges we face in Nigeria. When they come at you, right, then it will really test whether you went into business for the long haul or you went into business just for the fun of being called a CEO.
And being called a CEO, I like the fact that you ended with that, because you know that in our environment, everybody just wants that title.
Yeah,
it has
absolutely.
become a traditional title. I want
Sure.
to be referred to as a CEO, but people forget that, you know, the amount of work that you put into being an employer in another organization, you are going to put double of it being a CEO, but that's another story for another day. And when you were talking earlier, and you're talking about, you know, the concept of the lifestyle business, I think this leads me to PwC SME's account for 96% of businesses that they feel that, you know, how will I put it now, contribute only to 1% to exports. You know, when you think about the import and export in Nigeria, often citing back to lack of access to finances that are as a key constraints in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria. I think it's a global challenge. Yeah. But with speakers like Atanda-Owo Peter side, you know, who understand that institution of capital, I felt like I needed to ask you, how does this, you know, equip founders, you know, to say that, you know, how do we navigate the challenges? I try to avoid the word problems. In me, I just feel like it's another word for us to change in our dictionary, you know, challenging the journey from, you know, bootstrapping and personal savings that I feel attract that private equity that most people are actually struggling with when it comes to venturing into funding essential for growth in their businesses. What's your take on this?
So, I mean, the question of funding will always stare in the face of anyone trying to start a thing, because there's literally almost nothing you can do without resources or capital, right? But I think for every visionary business owner or business founder, your first question is really not funding. Your first question is, what is the authenticity of your idea? What is the market reception of your product or your innovation, you know? Because funding often goes in the direction of solutions. If you're solving a problem and people can see it, then people generally will galvanize to give you funds. I'll take it this way. Clearly, when you want to start a business, the expectation is that you probably have some, maybe meager savings that can at least help you maybe get your logo together, can help you maybe build a small website, get you to do some things. At least you can put together enough funding to maybe pay a consultant to do a decent business plan. So for me, for instance, when I talk to people who are up and coming and are trying to set up their business, I'm very curious, what have you been able to do on your own steam before you start talking about raising capital? Okay. Because capital in the hand of someone who hasn't really figured out how to be resourceful, that capital is going to leak away, and we've seen a lot of it. In fact, I was reading some data earlier. Over 40% of the startups that raised capital between 2022 and 2023 in Nigeria, over 40% of them are no longer existing as at Q2 2024. So you can see that capital is so critical, but it does not come off as the first thing to the survival of the business. It's important that we, you know, deploy capital correctly for businesses that need to scale. But before we talk about scale, have you tested your idea? Is this idea, you know, going to be accepted by the market? Now that's how I look at it.
Tested by the market. You and I know that, you know, in our country, you know, somebody can just see a Tayo now, or see a Kike, or see a Francis doing something, selling fabric, and they just feel, as far as Kike is making a lot of money, something I can do. It's not just about the passion that is driving them.
Sure.
So, and I like earlier when you were talking and you were giving your own insights regarding, you know, the kind of challenges that confronts us here in our environment, which is inflation. That one is a global thing, but with inflation at almost 24% and it persists to forex, you know, in terms of how most Nigerian businesses are supposed to use the challenges to strategize or focus on their survival of their own business and how to build that legacy that we are talking about today. How does this concept of building beyond you, by implementing that robust system, that governance, that frameworks, you know, that actually serves as the best defense against, you know, these recurring external economic shocks
Sure.
That many organizations, many businesses, so that many SMEs today, find themselves in, that have crippled many promising businesses. What's your take on this quickly?
Yeah, so if you're going to build beyond yourself, you take a long-term view. And my estimation of it is this: everything we do is interconnected. It is interconnected. So beyond the concept of just business, everything you and I get involved with, it translates to the inputs to another action. So it's such an important thing for business founders who are going to insulate their businesses from the economic shock you talk about, to build correctly. Why businesses struggle is that they don't build correctly. One of the things I said earlier was vision and strategy. Beyond vision and strategy, the next thing you would talk about really is systems and structure. Because your vision, your strategy may be, perfectly aligned. You might get your vision or strategy from a fantastic consulting firm. By the way, I started my career in consulting. I know how we can say a lot of things, in consulting that would make the client feel like, look, I can go out there and the next thing I'm making $1 million. But the reality is that you now need to put a structure in place, because if you don't implement correctly, the vision, the strategy will just be staring at you. So that structure is one of the things that I believe that helps businesses to sustain. If I take a look at our own company today, one of the things I met when I joined the company was a clear, presence of structure. I didn't come into an organization that didn't have structure, and that made it easy for me to build on what the founder, Mrs. Temilola Adepeton, had done. There are HR policies in place, there are procurement policies in place. We didn't have a board at the time, but we already had a few things going for us that helped us be able to scale to the next level. So I really think that founders need to be clear on that you can't game the system. You've got to do the work of building diligently, and the structures of how a good business should run, they are not hidden from us. If you go on the internet, you will find it there. Governance, audit, accountability. So financial prudence, for instance, you take a loan, you repay, you don't spend more than you are earning. All of those things are very fundamental, but you realize that a lot of people have the passion and they like the glitz and glamour of owning the businesses, but the rigor of driving a sustainable business is a totally different thing that business founders or business owners need to embrace.
Okay, many thanks for that insight right there. And, listening to you, yes, quite a number of people were saying, okay, yes, he went into an organization that had structure, and you were coming with your own value to add value
Absolutely.
to what has been established. But looking at the Nigerian business landscape, I would like you to share with us, based on all that you have seen, not necessarily working directly with them, what are the most common structural and financial barriers that you think that prevent brilliant startups, from scaling into enduring legacies, and how does this conference provide, practical solutions for them? Because regardless of however we think that, you are fortunate to go into an organization that already has that structure, many people do not even know how to. They don't know they don't have mentors to even guide them. Some people might even have the finance, but might not have somebody to put them through the nitty-gritty of how the process of businesses should run. So from your own perspective, what's your common knowledge from what you have seen thus far in terms of practical solutions for most of these startup businesses?
This might be a little cliche, but I'll say educate yourself first. It's so important, so foundational,
Absolutely.
so basic. The school system today, I went to a school here in Nigeria. My first degree was in Atanda-Owo University, Great Ife, and I'm so proud of my university. But the reality is, finishing an engineering degree in the university, it was very clear in my mind that I wasn't prepared to run a business with an engineering degree. And I can say
why is that?
Because, sincerely, the curriculum is not necessarily designed to empower you to go out there and start up a business. Me, I'll tell you categorically that I had two, moments of education. After finishing my first degree, starting my career in consulting was the best decision, that I could have made. And it wasn't even a deliberate decision. It just happened to be an opportunistic one, where I was introduced by a friend to a consulting firm, and I went in there, and what we did essentially was we sat down and started understudying businesses, right? We did a lot of research. We looked at the financial statements of a lot of businesses. And so in looking at all of that data, I was re-educating myself about really how do you run businesses. You said something around, the lack of mentors and, just the lack of know-how. I think that there is both a, private and a governmental responsibility if we're going to build our MSMEs, like you said. Like you said earlier, about over 90% of the businesses registered in this country are MSMEs, small and medium-scale businesses. The reality is that a lot of them lack the requisite skills, the knowledge, the technical know-how, the access to market data. You'll be shocked about how many people want to go into a business, say, of distribution of a particular product, let's say a healthcare product, but don't have the data on the people who might be able to afford this product, don't have the data on distribution, don't have data on registering your product, for instance, with the relevant authorities like, let's say, SON, NAFDAC. There's just a lot of either miseducation or lack of education. So I'm not going to castigate the school system broadly, but I'm going to say that perhaps there's a lot more we need to do in terms of reviewing our curriculum to get people prepared if we're looking at building an army of business founders who are going to be successful. That's my take on that. And then we also need to look at what you call the financing for small businesses. There's a lot of talk going on around that. But thank God for the recent renaissance, so to speak, of the fintechs who are now beginning to disburse small loans for small businesses and all of that. Some banks have done decently well, some banks have not done enough. But the reality is that the market environment today, you know what the interest rates are. We're talking between 28 and almost 36%. How many businesses can survive that kind of burden? So there's still a lot of challenge with how these things are designed. I know that there are some intervention funds, whether it's Bank of Industry or a bunch of others, but there's still a lot of work to be done to get the monies to the right people who have, shown a measure of discipline. So I think that there's a lot of work that we can do in terms of education and provision of access to finance.
All right, many thanks for that submission. We've got a quick break now to get the word from my sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with me, I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, we have been, we're here with a leader who has driven credible growth, discussing how to build a legacy that lasts. And this is the core question behind Building Beyond You, conference that is coming up on the 18th of September, that is being conveyed by the iconic beauty entrepreneur and pioneer Fela Durotoye. And as a countless founders, who I believe struggles to scale beyond their own direct involvement, how can Nigerian entrepreneurs create self-sustaining institutions are questions that I'm asking. The highly anticipated Building Beyond You conference, that I said like I said earlier, is being conveyed by Fela Durotoye, is set to take place again on the 18th of September 2025, at the prestigious Harbour Points on Victoria Island, Lagos, or in Victoria Island, Lagos, whichever one. English is failing right now. But this landmark event is designed to tackle the critical challenges of scaling and institutionalizing within the Nigerian business landscape, and of course bringing together an audience of entrepreneurs and business leaders for a day of transformative of learning and strategy. Again, I want to say many thanks to Tayo or CME for all that you have shared thus far. Let me use this opportunity to open the phone lines for those who have who would like to contribute to the show at the moment. Please, you can reach us on the number that is showing on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming on Facebook, both on Real Talk with Kike platform and on Silverbird platform. Tayo, a lot have been shared, and I must say that, you know, with somebody listening to you, you know, many people believe that women are the ones that does all this entrepreneurial stuff and all of that. So listen to a man, you know, share his own experience, you know, give his own impact on the topic at hand. I must say kudos for all that you have done thus far. But many of Nigerians' largest family-owned businesses, you know, face a looming succession crisis. Let's keep it real on this platform. You know, I've not really fully read Femi Otedola's books, you know, how he's talking about his children refuse to even want to take over his business and all of that. Why some children will actually see some of the challenges that their parents are going through, and they might be able to even find solution, but they are not ready to step in. So I feel that the building beyond you theme isn't just about scale.
Yep.
It's about continuity.
Absolutely.
How does this conference, Tayo, addresses that sensitive but critical issue of professionalism, of governance that you and I have touched on earlier, and planning for leadership? I believe that leadership succession to ensure that these entrepreneurs, you know, outlive their founders and they don't just become another statistics. In an environment or in a home where, let me use Tara Fela Durotoye business. You know, many people today, when they hear the name Tara, they think of makeup.
Absolutely.
So, and you have seen how she has transitioned to another person to carry the mantra, to say, okay, you know what, continue, I'm behind you, I'm not behind. There are many other businesses like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm wondering, how do we find that solution in a way that will outlive those founders, and all this will not be a statistic that you and I are just talking back and forth without not finding a solution to the issue? And what's your take on this?
Okay, so if we're talking about solutions, I would say that I think founders, first of all, need to be clear that a business, you know, is not necessarily a vehicle that they need to force to embody, quote unquote, what their family, personal families are about. Okay. A business is an entity. You know, when I was in Lagos Business School for a program, one of the things that was talked about was the entity concept. Different from what you might call a limited liability company is different from a business name, for the reason that the business is different from you in a limited liability company. So the entity called the business must be given its own fair opportunity to survive. And so the moment a founder wants to sort of force the idea of my family must be involved in a certain way, right? It can create the shipwreck of a business. It can create a major problem. I do think that founders should seek to preserve the value that they've created in their businesses. But in terms of operationalizing a business, meaning who runs the business, who is doing what, I think it's important for founders to go for the most suited, you know, resource persons, whether it's, you know, in terms of talent, in terms of personality, in terms of vision. So the challenge is where a number of founders, like you're talking about family businesses, you know, think and insist that, you know, the successor has to be somebody who is a family member. I read a book a long time ago by, you know, I mean, it was a Marks and Spencer story, and the book talked a lot about the business. You know, it's a very renowned business in the UK, and we all know the story of the Marks and Spencer. You know, the founders established a culture where, you know, whilst they preserved equity within the family, the people that ran the business were essentially people that grew in the business, that embodied the ethos and the values of the business and could drive the business to the next level. Personally, for me, in joining SKLD, or Skilled as we like to call it, in 2013, one of the most rewarding things for me has been the ability to contribute to the vision. The vision was already on course, but when I came in with fresh eyes. Obviously, I could see things that perhaps the founder had seen in a particular way, and she gave me the space to contribute to the vision. if
not
she,
micromanaging you. That's another topic on its own.
I can't say this enough, but if you're going to get someone to contribute to your vision, you've got to make certain adjustments. The adjustments you make in terms of
there must be some level of ownership culture,
flexibility, shifting grounds for other ideas, because your ideas would only take you so far. Your experiences and my experiences will differ, so the way we will see things will be different. So if I come in as, let's say, your sidekick, and I'm seeing things in a different way, and I volunteer maybe ideas, and you shut it down. After a while, I'm just going to pack it up and just continue to play the yes ma, yes sir game, and then you never really get value out of that. So I think that business founders need to first of all establish that succession does not have to be biological. Yeah, it can be anything else.
Okay,
I
hear you. I'm trying to manage Sam right now before they start running commentary in my ears. So, you know, with all that you've shared thus far, with African digital economy that is being projected to reach about $712 billion by 2050, you know, many Nigerians, you know, or many Nigerian businesses still operating on traditional models. You know, when you are talking right now, what is coming to my head is, this is how I want to do my thing, not how another person, you know. So there's a lot of traditional models. People are not ready to embrace something new. How does this conference now, through voices like, you know, Stephanie Obi that I saw in the on the flyer, you know, push founders to leverage that digital tools, you know, and knowledge to monetize, or in terms of monetization, to not just, you know, compete, you know, locally, but also build a scalable global businesses from Nigeria. We have seen how fashion today, music today, has transitioned beyond just the four corners of our walls.
Sure.
What's your take on this quickly?
Absolutely. I think technology is a competitive advantage, and business owners, especially businesses founded, let's say, in the last 40 years, 30 years, they need to take advantage of the changing dynamics of the landscape. Now, clearly, my parents, your parents, there was only so much technology they were exposed to. Now, if you look at our kids, for instance, the way they embrace technology is totally different. So if business founders don't embrace the idea that technology is shifting the landscape, and it's a case now of embrace it or you go extinct, embrace it or you lose out in the market share. I think when businesses embrace the idea that the founder may not have all the technical knowledge, you know, to embed, you know, tools and, you know, new technology into their business, and they embrace, you know, a younger generation of people who see these things better, who are natives of the digital world. I think that when founders begin to make that shift, they will see a, you know, a leap in their businesses, and I think that that's something that we're going to be touching on in the course of the conference, how people can embrace technology for things like marketing, brand building, and a number of other things.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of digital knowledge economy, and I know that Stephanie Obi is going to throw a lot of light on that.
Sure.
You know, I think she's been on my radio program before. But moving away from that, this might be my last question to you because of time. We have the last segment of the show, and right now I must ask you, what is the mindset shift thus far with all that you have shared that requires a Nigerian entrepreneur who is still technically in their own business, to who they feel that, you know, how do we become a true institutional builder? Because I cannot help but still touch on this theme, you know, for entrepreneurs watching you and I right now, you know, listening to you, and they feel that, oh, we feel so stuck. You know, but I'm listening to Tayo. Can I do this? What is the one actionable takeaway that you hope that they can get from your conversation, from our conversation today, that will encourage them to attend this conference and begin their own journey to building an institution that will uplift them?
Thanks, Kike. I think the strongest point I can make at this very moment of the show is succession planning is never too early. We don't hold all the cards. We're healthy and strong today. We have no clue what happens tomorrow. If your business is going to be sustained, and if you're thinking about legacy, you have to ensure that from the bat, you're thinking, if anything were to happen to me, if something were to happen, and it doesn't have to be a negative thing, it could be something else. For instance, I was talking to a business person who was doing, you know, something major in a particular company, and then he got a political appointment that he felt was the next phase of his career. And guess what happened? The business he was running died. That doesn't have to be. So succession planning is never too early, and I would strongly suggest that if you started your business yesterday, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, start, with your succession planning. Make sure that you have, some plan in place to look at who are the resources, who are the, talents within your team who can potentially, manage some of the things that you do, who can take things to the next level, who can make certain decisions, and then you begin to seed decisions to them, begin to show that you trust them, begin to give them room to fail, correct, and then you likely would have the chance. It's just like when people say, oh, you're young, why are you writing your will? Hello. Exactly. You understand? So you want to build a legacy business, start your succession planning as early as you can, and you would likely have a chance of sustaining that business beyond you, and it will help you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Many thanks for all your submission thus far. I wish you the very best as you continue to navigate the waters of this entrepreneurship, because I know that there's no ease of doing business in this country. I try to keep it real as much as I can, but definitely people like you, are throwing a lot of light and helping other people behind to actually look for how to water the storm. Again, I wish you the very best. But before I let you go, there's the last segment of the show that I call trend. I call it trending story, but I'm trying to change the what's it called now to my take,
line, yeah.
And it's because I feel it's very editorial. This is where I have an opinion as a host. And the first trending story that caught my attention is that of the 9/11 memorial, which 24 years later today, and I remember, or we remember, this tragic event of September 11, 2001, right? And I want to use this medium to just honor the lives that were lost. Thousands of innocent people were killed. Families were broken. The world stood in shock. And around about 2,753, people died, almost 3,000 people, when 2 planes struck the Twin Towers. And it was a day that showed humanity, the depth of brutality, but also the power of unity, as people came together to help, to mourn, to help, to heal. The impact of 9/11 has gone far beyond that day. And it changed how the world thinks about safety, terrorism, airports, governance, governments, and communities across the globe have adjusted their system to just protect people from similar attacks. Unfortunately, it's also brought, years of conflict, of fear, and distrust that reshaped international relations. I try as much as possible to keep it real. I know there's a lot of opinions or perspective on this 9/11. I actually don't follow many opinions, but I'm trying not to give so many negativity and my own issue that will add to the issue at hand. But it also has changed the way the world approaches the word terror or terrorism. This unfortunate incident has led to wars between Afghanistan and America, America and Iraq. It has led to disruption to African countries across like Libya and so many others, and I really don't want to start mentioning all of this. But as we pay tribute today, I just feel that with all that is happening in our country, we must look for how to find solutions to the issue at hand. We must look for how we can find healing to make sure that the impact of this 9/11, has gone beyond that day, has gone beyond the fact that we must come together to unify ourselves. As we pay tribute today again, we must also hope and work together for a world where I believe that, is still, we are still in, I don't know, I'm trying to process my thought process in a way that will not bring a lot of issues, where I just feel violence never happens again. We must come together to make sure that violence, become a thing of the past. It's something that I feel that I need to emphasize on today, because humanity deserves dignity, deserves peace and safety. Let us never forget, and let us also choose unity over hate. And it doesn't have to happen with just these tragic issues. It starts from our home, How do we relate to each other? How do we show kindness to each other? How does our children transition this to wherever they find themselves? I always tell people that power of character does not begin in your office, it begins from your home. And as parents, as people who nurture, who are guidance to a lot of young ones, when we are talking about also building beyond businesses, we must we must build our character to a place where our children can actually model after us, and will be the first role model, not people that they don't know behind cameras, that they are only showing what they want you to see, not the likes of Olosho. I'm not saying that he has any flaw character, I'm just using that my own children, I must be their first role model, which means that I must make sure that my character is not questionable by man. And when we start doing that, that is when we'll find unity wherever we find ourselves, and we'll live in a better society. What's your take on 9/11?
Well, 9/11 obviously brings a lot of very dark memories of the worst of humanity, just like you've said. And just like you said, it has really reshaped, geopolitical relationships, put America in a place where they've had to, beyond even catering to their home country, look at global safety. Of course, air travel has been significantly impacted. And just as you echoed, I strongly believe that we should continue to promote a world where there's tolerance, where there's understanding amongst people. 9/11 is not an isolated event. There's so many other events that have come out of 9/11. There remains, of course, the Cold War between the Middle East and some parts of the West generally. So I strongly believe that as a people, we should remember that the world is only as prosperous as it is safe. If the world is not safe, there's no prosperity. Look at the plunder that has happened in Ukraine and a number of other regions. There's no prosperity when there's no safety. And so safety must be a collaborative and a collective agenda, a collective responsibility. And it starts from the home, just like you said, in our local communities, in our states, in the nation, and across the nation. So as leaders, we must continue to embrace that from a business point of view, from a governance point of view, embracing safety and making sure that people have a chance to earn a living and to live a life that is credible.
All right, many thanks for your own submission on 9/11. Quickly, the second trending story that caught my attention is that of the Natasha's case, the denial of access to Senate to resume constitutional duty. And, I've tried as much as possible to find a balance to these issues when it comes to actions and actors involved. I just find it deeply troubling that Senator Natasha Akpoti is still being prevented from resuming her duties after, serving a 6-month suspension. And this is not just about her as an individual, if you ask me, but about, democracy itself. Natasha was suspended on March 6th for alleged insubordination, losing salaries, aids, office privileges. The suspension, as the African Democratic Congress rightly, as rightly said, was imposed by the Senate, not just by the court of law. And whether one agrees with the basis for that decision or not, the tenor of that disciplinary action has elapsed. Any further attempt to prevent her from resuming is therefore both legal and morally indefensible. That's my take. This is becoming unbearable, unacceptable. It's a blatant witch hunting, if I'm not trying to, tiptoe around my thought process right now in terms of how these actors involved have carried on. And it's unacceptable. Let the lady fulfill her civic duties and our constitutional obligations. You all know that, I've questioned the likes of how all these things unraveled. I didn't agree with her and the likes and all of that. But there are certain things that we must stand on and understand that denying Natasha entry into the Senate is not just denying her, it's denying the people of Kogi Central representation. Our constituencies voted for her to be their voice. And shutting her out means silencing thousands of citizens who trusted her with their mandate. So this is even more painful because women in politics already face hurdles 200 times heavier than men. Nigerians can clearly see that Natasha is being, maligned and that what she is going through right now is not just political victimization, but also an unspoken war against her as a woman in leadership, in politics. So the people of Kogi Central elected Natasha to represent them, and buying her from this old Senate amount to denying her all the rights to be heard. So to strip her of her salary, the aids, access to her office was already unjust for me. But to continue blocking her even after her suspension has ended, I don't know, nothing short of the abuse of power. Let's keep it real. This issue goes beyond partisan politics. It sets a dangerous precedent where legislative power becomes subject to personal, vendetta instead of the will of the people. As ADC has also warned, I just feel that at this moment is asking, what is at stake here? It's not just about one Senate seat, but the integrity of the democracy itself. What's your take on this? Because I know that everybody
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I have 2 daughters, and today I can say for a fact that I am looking forward to building them to be strong women in society who will, in their own rights, contribute, meaningfully to the society that they grow in. Today we have only 4 women in the 10th Assembly, only 4 women. And so if we have one woman who, yes, was alleged to have, sort of violated certain rules or what have you, and has been duly punished, there's no reason why she's now not being reaccepted back. And I think that we need to make an example of this. If we're trying to promote more involvement of women, we're trying to promote gender equality, we're trying to promote equal opportunity, there's no reason why we shouldn't take this as a pivotal case where we push hard for her to be represented and to be assimilated back into the Senate to continue her duties. And one last thing I'd like to talk about is the rule of law. We cannot talk about legislature, and legislature is being seen to, so to speak, dance around law. There's fairness in the rule of law, and there has to be a clear case of if she has met the requirements of the law with regards to this particular, compliance or whatever it is, she needs to be fully given her access back into the Senate. I do think that we need to promote the idea that we're not afraid of strong women. We're not afraid to see strong women emerge in our society to contribute in their own way.
All right, many thanks for your submission on that. And I like the fact that you've been able to tailor it down to you having female children. I have 2 daughters as well, so I must learn my voice. But again, before I wrap up the show, let me use this medium to actually give a shout out to one of my team members, Mr. Sunday. I call him Baba. He turned 60 today. I wish that I knew before coming into this studio. I want to say congratulations, happy birthday. I wish you longevity in sparkling of health. This calls for implication. Don't come and meet me that, madam, come and whatever. You are the one now that should give me something something in return. But he's very diligent, dedicated. One of the issues that I think I have with him is the fact that that I always tell him that there must be power beyond one. Baba wants to do everything and not delegate to people and all of that. But how much you turn 60, you understand that you've gotten to a place of what they call it now, is it high stakeholder in the society where you have to start taking a step back and looking for other people to take the mantra from you. Again, absolutely. I wish you the very best. And congratulations again, my very own Baba on Talk with Kike, Mr. Sunday. On this note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show. But before I draw the curtains of the show, let me say many thanks again to our resourceful guest, Tayo Osiyemi, for all your contribution thus far. Tayo Osiyemi is the Executive Director, SKLD Integrated Service Limited, and co-founder and Executive Director, EDTech Startup. And I must say, I wish you the very best as you continue to lend your voice on issues that affect us all, and especially when it comes to foundational issues. Thank you so much for creating time to do this. On this note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show. Till I come your way next week, remember to be kind to yourself and put a smile on somebody's face. Bye now. My name is Atanda-Owo.